United Nations slams Canada's temporary foreign worker program. The recession is upon us, and we're going to talk about the signs of how bad it's getting. And development charges continue to be a problem in this province. And a big shout out to Toronto Fire Services for doing heroic work this week. All this on this episode of the podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Vince Gaetano. If you haven't already, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Well, folks, not good news for Canada on the world stage. United Nations sent out a special rapporteur. The gentleman's name is Tomoyo Obokata. Came out, did a visit of temporary foreign workers in Canada, and basically said, we are a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. If that is not the worst description of the situation in Canada, I don't know what is. But he claims that there are wage thefts, excessive work hours, physical and sexual abuse, and just terrible living conditions. This is all in a report by the United Nations. And guess what our Minister of Immigration, Mark Miller, had to say? Quote, we are going to tackle this issue and some changes are coming, but we have to be careful not to impact food costs. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. This was in an article by the CBC. Okay? He is more concerned about food prices than the living conditions of our temporary foreign workers. If this isn't gaslighting 101, I don't know what is. This is absolutely insane, folks. But we need to realize the impact that this type of program has on our country. And the reality is there's almost 240,000 of these temporary foreign workers that come into Canada, and that's the number last year. So it is a concern. We need to do better. And we should keep our eye on this file because I think it's only going to get worse as it gets addressed by the government in these times of high inflation on food prices and how this is going to impact that whole industry. And on the topic of political gaslighting, I want to talk about our politicians. Okay, we have seen our politicians cheerlead about how well our economy is going. We have our Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, claiming that our GDP is growing at the fastest rate. But here's the problem, folks. Even though the IMF, International Monetary Fund, claims that our growth rate is 1.2%, StatsCan tells us that from quarter 2 2023 to quarter 2 2024, our population growth has gone up by 3.2%. That's a StatsCan number. Go to their website when you look at their population clock and you could track this yourself. Okay, I'm not making this stuff up. Okay, so when you have population growth growing by 3.2%, but the GDP of this country is at 1.2%, we have negative growth. And this has been the case for the last 2 years. We are in a technical recession when you factor in per capita GDP growth. And here's the problem. Bankruptcies are exploding. We've had 96,000 consumer insolvencies filed in June. That's about 370 a day, folks. The number of consumers that missed payments, according to Equifax, over the past year was 1.26 million people. This is not good news, folks. Okay, that is a 12.2% jump in a year. Ontario is sitting at 14.6% increase in payment arrears. You have BC at 13.4%. In Quebec, 15.2%. This is not good. As more and more people come up for mortgage renewals, we have about 90 to 100,000 households that are facing a mortgage renewal every month. They are dealing with payment shock. They are seeing payments on their mortgage spike, and it's impacting household budgets at an alarming rate that's resulting in a lot of missed payments. So when you add 90 to 100,000 households every month to a higher payment because of mortgage renewals, you're going to have a deteriorating situation that's only going to get worse. And you're going to continue to see cuts to interest rates. Now, cuts to interest rates are not something to celebrate because the Bank of Canada doesn't cut rates because things are good. They cut rates because things are in the shitter, folks. Okay? Things are getting bad and they might have to accelerate cuts to help people get through what we're all dealing with. And every day, folks, we're dealing with people that have financial challenges. So if you do need any help, please reach out. We're here to help, and we'll be more than happy to try to provide some options and solutions for you. Now, I've been really drilling down on the development charges. Ontario, in specific Toronto, has one of the highest development charges in the country. Okay? In about 2009, our development charges per home was about $36,000. It has now climbed to $241,000. And that is a challenge because I need to explain to people that this is the cause for home value appreciation. Okay? And I'm going to use this example. If your house was built on one side of the street in 2009, it only had $36,000 in development charges. When you're building new homes today that are costing an extra $200,000 plus in development charges, all of a sudden on a comparative basis, and this is how banks value homes when they're giving out mortgages and whatnot. They use a comparative analysis of similar type homes. So when homes are being built for about $200,000 more, whether it's a condo, a semi, a detached, a townhouse, or whatever, all the homes built in 2009 actually go up in value because of these development charges. Now, these politicians will make you think that, well, the developer's paying that. Folks, they pass it on to the consumer. The consumer pays all these charges. They just pass it on to the consumer, and that's how we get inflation on home values. Now, I want to point out something. One of the most affordable areas of the country is Quebec. Quebec has some of the lowest development charges in the country. And the reason for that is there's two ways in which development charges can be dealt with. In Ontario, whenever we're funding infrastructure, we want to pay for it upfront. And that cost is borne and not spread over time. Okay? Infrastructure lasts a long time, 20, 30, 40 years. These are roads, bridges, water sewers, water mains, sewer, sanitary lines, and all that. They last a long time. And when you have to build for excess growth. So you're always building for more capacity than what you have because you have to project what the city or the town or the municipality is going to grow to. So you always got to build more to deal with the excess capacity down the road. In Ontario, we pay for that all up front. In Quebec, they use debt. They amortize, like a mortgage, they amortize that cost so that development charges are borne over time. And everybody covers those costs as they use the facilities and the infrastructure. And we have to start looking at models that work. If Quebec has better or improved housing affordability, we should be looking at these models and start changing the way we do things. And we need politicians to start coming up with solutions as opposed to just gaslighting us, running around, prancing around with photo ops, announcing stuff, and nothing gets done. Folks, we need accountability. We need politicians that roll up their sleeves and get to fucking work because they're not doing it. There's problems all over the place. And I want to point out Toronto Fire Services. I want to send out a huge thank you. These folks are the true heroes in our city. This week we had an incident in the neighborhood, and I walked by it and I saw someone in distress. They were overdosing. It was a very tough sight to see, and I called 911. We were able to get emergency services out immediately. I'm talking like a minute and a half. They were here on call, and the care and service levels they provided to help this individual in distress was heroic. And I want to send out a huge shout out to these folks that are doing this every day. And when it hits too close to home, you start realizing that there's a few cracks in the system. There's a few problems out there that are growing. And it's the first time I've seen it in my neighborhood. So it's real, it's happening, and a big shout out to emergency services out there. You're doing yeoman's work. So thank you for your effort. Now, folks, if you do need any assistance, if you're struggling with household finances, give us a call. We have some great tips, and one that's gaining a lot of traction is the cancellation of your credit cards. A lot of folks have been calling us saying, Vince, I used this tip and it's working. Call your credit card company, cancel your card, tell them you've lost it. They'll give you a replacement card, and all of a sudden, all those recurring charges, all those subscriptions that you never thought you could figure out how to get rid of, they're now contacting you to re-engage them with your new credit card. And you could decide whether it's a feature or a product or service that you really need. Because a lot of folks forget about subscriptions they signed up for and don't use anymore. Whether it's a membership, a subscription, or a monthly charge. A lot of these folks don't know how to contact these companies or don't have the time. So by canceling your card, everybody has to contact you to try to reconnect and recharge you. So that's a tip that's gaining some traction. A lot of people are finding that very useful. And some people are saying they're saving hundreds of dollars on the multiple subscriptions and charges that they've been paying and not even benefiting from. So if you do need some assistance, please give us a call. We'll be happy to help you out. And a special thank you for all those folks that put comments and send me DMs on a daily basis. I read all of them. I try to respond to as many as I can. And I appreciate the good and the bad. They're great feedback. I take great pride in the fact that folks do comment, and keep them coming. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the summer. Take care.